Now, let's first and foremost understand that Bangladesh is a country that is born out of a war between India and Pakistan back in 1971. That particular country is currently on a boil. Protests against reservation in the jobs have led to widespread agitation, some snapshots on your screens as well, which started from university campuses, which is where the China angle also comes into play. There's a lot of Chinese involvement in the varsities in Bangladesh. Now, ongoing student protests so far have seen government buildings getting torched by demonstrators and the imposition of a nationwide internet blackout. Currently, Bangladesh is under a national curfew. The unrest has already taken the lives of 105 people, while many are still injured, including several policemen. That number could very well be on the upwards of 1,500. Continuing with the week-long protests, students took to the streets again on Friday ahead of the pro-government counter-demonstrations that were slated to begin after midday prayers, despite a ban on all the public gatherings. We've got some experts that are lined up to speak on all these aspects, whether was it a Chinese hand, what did the Razakars do, what is Hasina's relevance now given India's position in the subcontinent, and of course, Khaleda Zia, what's the future on that particular front. But first and foremost, let's take a look at what Sheikh Hasina's relevance means to India. Let's open that up. We're going to be joined by an expert panelist very shortly. And for India, this unrest in its own neighborhood is certainly not good news. India is already surrounded by hostile nations. Take a look at some of those examples. We'll keep throwing them on air as well. India's relation with China and Pakistan has always been challenging. Of course, Afghanistan is already under the Taliban rule. But then, of course, you've got Mohamed Muizzu in Maldives, don't you? India-Maldives relations have been navigating through rough waters, since the new government of President Mohamed Muizzu and him taking office. Maldives President Mohamed Muizzu's pro-China party won a landslide victory in the parliamentary elections this very year. And Mohamed Muizzu is seen as less favorably disposed towards India. Sheikh Hasina is that pro-India Bangladeshi Prime Minister after decades, and it seems like she's under trouble. Now, on the other hand, India and Sri Lanka have a long history of cultural, religious and trade ties, dating back to ancient times, with being the closest maritime neighbor. But Sri Lanka right now is unstable and is grappling with its own economic meltdown since the independence in 1948. The presidential and parliamentary elections are due to be held in 2024 and 2025. Now, the bigger question is, could this year loosen the grip of authoritarianism that was established by the Rajapaksa family over the last 15 years whilst they were in power? Meanwhile, let's shift our focus to what's happening in Nepal. In the recent past, India did have some strained relations with another neighbor, Myanmar and Nepal, which is otherwise a friendly nation to India. But recently, after KP Oli coming back into power, Prachanda going out after failing the fifth vote of confidence after getting to power, all of this needs to be looked at as well. Talking about India's relation with Bangladesh, ladies and gentlemen. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visiting Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina coming to India. For India, the topmost priority is its strategic interest. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has adroitly balanced ties with both China and India. Recently, she visited China as well. Her trip getting short by a full 1 day because she was apparently miffed with what the promised money was and what was actually given by Beijing to Dhaka. Now, Beijing has significantly expanded its footprint in smaller South Asian countries with its Belt and Road Initiative and infrastructure. Dhaka joined Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative back in 2016. Now, for India, the return of Sheikh Hasina's Awami League party to the helm in Bangladesh for a fourth consecutive term was a welcome development for sure. India has already established a strong partnership with Bangladesh under the leadership of Sheikh Hasina. India and Bangladesh share a 4,000-kilometer long border and an excellent state of bilateral relations. Sharing a border with Bangladesh makes the country utterly important for India, which faces challenges of cross-border terrorism, national security, migration and trade. And as Sheikh Hasina came into power in Bangladesh, she helped India's security burden by clamping down on insurgents, terrorists and separatists as well. Well, now, joining us on the broadcast is Pathikrit Pine, foreign affairs expert and geopolitical analyst. A very warm welcome to you. Let's get the ball rolling, Mr. Pathikrit. What do you think Sheikh Hasina's current relevance, given the current situation, national curfew, internet cut across the country, students at the forefront of these massive violent protests, what do you think her relevance remains, especially from the Indian point of view?
Good evening, Kabir. Yes, it is a difficult situation that Bangladesh is going through, and but Bangladesh has never been a very stable country. From time to time, we have seen such instability or some violence happening over there. This one is a little different because there's a lot of student movement. There's a lot of student in participation in this movement. Not that it has not happened in the past, but this time it is different because it seems that while the protest is on the pretext of the quota issue, the surprising thing is that this quota, which was there from 1972, the 30% quota for freedom fighters' families, that was scrapped in 2018 by the Sheikh Hasina government herself. Then it went to the Bangladesh High Court where it got reinstated, and the Supreme Court of Bangladesh then again struck it down. But there is a status quo which has been maintained for some time, and there's a hearing again on 7th of August. So protesters are asking the Sheikh Hasina government to bring a constitutional amendment to completely do away with the quota. The surprising thing is that eventually Sheikh Hasina government might even do that. But why, for an issue where the Supreme Court has already struck down the quota and is waiting for a 7th of August hearing, why is it that for that purpose there's a nationwide protest which started, and then it has become so violent, and today the core issue has got sidelined. Today, if you look at majority of the protesters, they're only asking one thing, that Sheikh Hasina government must resign. So it means that even though the emotions of people, I don't want to comment on that, that is their internal affair, but it's somewhere there are certain elements who are streamlining and navigating the entire emotive issue into a movement which is channelized against the Sheikh Hasina government. And at the same time, I must tell you, for the last 1 year almost, there is a concerted anti-India campaign going on in Bangladesh as meanwhile, where they're trying to ban or boycott Indian products, even though there is an overwhelming dependence that Bangladeshi people have on Indian goods and services. A large number of them even come to India for treatment. So from that perspective, it doesn't seem an organic movement again on the quota issue. It is something else happening. And let me add one thing. 2 months back, Sheikh Hasina had mentioned this, that in January this year, a white man, she did not mention who that white man is. She said that a white man had told her that if she allows a foreign country to set up a base, an air base in her country, then she would have no problem with the elections. But if it doesn't happen that way, there are consequences possibly. So I'm not trying to infer that that is the reason why this one is happening. But if you look at the telltale signs, it's very apparent that the way Arab Spring was created in Middle East and North Africa to destabilize a large number of countries, the way even it happened in India in the form of anti-CAA protest, the same thing is happening here, where an online movement starts, then suddenly an umbrella organization springs up, galvanizes everybody, and then the issue is totally directed by social media, where you see students be getting beaten up or hurt. So eventually the core issue gets sidelined. Then it becomes an emotive issue and everybody joins in. So I think what is important for Bangladesh is to ensure that the communication lines are kept open. Please talk to the students, because Sheikh Hasina government, from the perspective of overall South Asian stability and for India, is very important. And let there be no doubt.
That's exactly what I was coming to. That's exactly what I was coming to, Mr. Patikrit. From the India point of view, the relevance of Sheikh Hasina has to be paramount at this point in time. I mean, it was welcomed when she took over at the helm of affairs for the 4th consecutive time. If she goes out, or if this Hasina government destabilizes, what does it mean for the entire subcontinent region? I mean, we've got Rajapaksa, we've got KP Oli, we've got the Taliban in Afghanistan, things not looking too fine in Maldives as well for India. What does it mean for India particularly? Very quickly, Mr. Patikrit.
So, frankly speaking, is when you are a $4 trillion economy going up the ladder, your Atmanirbhar, invariably there are elements who will try to create stability in your neighborhood. That's a given. So, but at the same time, when it comes to Sheikh Hasina government, while she is critically important for India for the stability of Northeast, because she had acted against many anti-India elements, it is also important for Sheikh Hasina government to understand that in today's area where things are driven by social media, using firepower against students becomes counterproductive. Using army to pin down a movement is counterproductive, because army is meant to kill. That is not going to help. It may have helped many other countries. It may not help in today's area of social media, where the whole world is watching. So yes, it is a challenging situation, but I must say, please open up the communication line, because instability in Bangladesh, and if it eventually gives rise to a civil war kind of a situation as it happened in Syria, then we will not be in a good position in terms of creating another LTT kind of a situation in Bangladesh. It's not in our interest. But while supporting the Bangladeshi government, which I'm sure in every way we would support the country and the government, it is equally important for the government to change the tactics of how you deal with civil unrest. In India, I want to mention one thing. There were provocative, unrest in India, anti-CA protests, anti-farm law protests. The government made it very clear: we will not use firepower. No policeman will shoot down anybody. And that is how eventually the intensity of such protests die down. You talk to people, because eventually they are your people. The moment you put an army, cutting across political lines, people respect army in a country. Now, when you pit the army against others, then it becomes very, very dangerous. It creates another side starts taking up arms. It may not have happened in Bangladesh in the past, but possibilities cannot be ruled out, because there are elements who are willing to supply those arms to make Bangladesh go up in the fire. That is
Well,
what
certainly,
is very
certainly.
important.
And with the volatile kind of situation right now and the emotions that you're speaking about as well, Mr. Pathakrit, only time will tell.